How's everybody doing? Welcome to Combat Vet Vision. This is a place where veterans, sponsor supporters, volunteers get to come out and kind of talk about what they're doing to help our veterans, our combat veterans. A lot of different avenues of support, where that might lie, what that might do, and a lot of different things. So, usually I have JB Brown on deck. He's my co-host, JB Brown's Kitchen, his segment. He's not with us today. He's got a lot of things going on. He's doing some cooking stuff, and he just couldn't make it today. So we're gonna probably see him hopefully next week or the week after. Before we get started, you got Brian Colburn, SitchRadio.com. He is the producer and the inspiration behind my show, Combat Vet Vision. He's a United States Marine, does a whole bunch of things to inspire a lot of different podcasts that's taking place, a whole bunch of photography classes, a whole bunch of different things. Him and his wife have been friends of mine for quite some time. And recently his wife passed away, and to memorialize her, I just wanted to say, that she lived October 15th, 1972 to she passed away 18th of November 2025. She had her own podcast for an ailment that she had. Sjogren's Strong was her podcast that talked about the Sjogren's ailment, and it's just sad that she's not with us. And Brian, thanks for still conducting my show and still being part of this network. And I know you got a lot of things that you have to be involved with. And one of the reasons why my next guest is on deck is because Brian needed to get some information about his home and different things of that network. And and what that does is it creates an environment where I have to reach out to, and this is what I do. It's not that I have to, it's that I am honored to be able to reach out to some of the networking contacts and buddies that I haven't had a chance to talk to in a while, and ask them some questions that they might have answers to. And not just answers, but answers that are trusted, true ways of paths to get forward to the veterans that need that kind of answers. And so my next guest is Adam Heaney. He's been on deck with me for a long time. He actually helped me get 3 of my houses. I sold them, moved into another house, and he's helped me through that process. He's helped me through a bunch of different processes, helping our veterans out. I've sent a couple of vets to him throughout the United States, getting their homes. And so, Adam, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. And I first met him at a different event with a different nonprofit that was doing some things, and he actually teaches real estate agents on how to manage the VA loan. And he has this VA loan boot camp organization, and he actually came to Warrior Built Foundation and actually spent some time with me up there, and actually got some real estate agents to come in and take his course and get to know the VA loan. Now, that VA loan has been out there for a long time. A lot of real estate agents are very familiar with that, a lot more than they ever were when you and I were talking way back when. I would say, they prefer that pathway now, and you still help out. Let's talk about what you're doing and what you do, and why you've taken such an interest in helping support our veteran community, as well as just taking an interest in supporting all the networking that I've had to send down your way. So
Thank you, Aaron. I totally appreciate it. It's an honor to be with you here. Certainly, I've listened to a lot of podcasts, but this is the first one I've been on, so I totally appreciate the opportunity. And it is great to be here with you anytime, just to connect with you, personally, when we've worked on your own loans, or we're connecting, over an event like you mentioned, Warrior Built, and these classes that you had mentioned. So we've taught classes to realtors, really primarily to educate realtors, and of course the veterans are invited to these functions too. But the main people that we felt we had to educate were the realtors, because they're, the gatekeepers when it comes time to, when people submit an offer. and it's the realtor who's looking at it and trying to assess, what's going to be the best offer for their client. And so I've done those, typically, have done those types of classes at, some like at our office and, other sort of venues like that. But definitely the coolest one was at Warrior Built, because we had, motorcycles and buggies and just all the cool stuff there you guys had at Warrior Built. And so it was a really cool venue, and really just kind of, hit home, dealing with the veteran, at least a portion of the veteran community in that, atmosphere of, you know, out of the normal sort of classroom setting. So that was an honor. But yeah, what these classes were, that's called Military Mortgage Boot Camp. Again, primarily to educate realtors, because the VA loan, as Aaron said, has been around for a long time. But it hadn't always had the best reputation. And a lot of that had to do with, frankly, the loan officers who were not well versed in it. And, I'm guilty of that. When I started out very early in my career, I didn't really know how VA loan kind of sounded sort of complicated. But then because of that lack of understanding with loan officers, that also spilled over into the real estate community, veterans were often at a disadvantage for getting their offer accepted, because if you think about it, the optics of an offer, it has, what's the purchase price, what's the escrow period, how long are we looking to close, how much money are they putting down, and some other things in there too. And all those things kind of, you assess the situation of which one you think is going to be the best, that's going to get your client to the closing line, to the finish line, to closing, and do it on time. And so, obviously one of the best things about the VA home loan is the fact that you've earned the right to buy a home with zero down payment. That's an entitlement that that veterans have earned. That said, when you have a realtor who's looking at, 3 or 4 offers, and, this person's putting 10% down, maybe this person's putting 5% down, this person's putting 20% down, and then here's this VA offer with 0 down. And just the optics of it doesn't look maybe as good as the others, because the others have, quote unquote, skin in the game. And, there's assumption, well, what's this person been doing? They haven't saved any money. Well, what they've been doing is serving our country. But maybe they had money, right? But they just chose not to put down payment, because then again, that's a benefit that veterans have earned to do. But the reality is, they kind of look at that and be like, I kind of feel a little safer going with one of these others that have a higher down payment. And then in addition to that, there were other things about the VA loan that, back in yesteryear were kind of a problem, and they had sort of stuck with, sort of stigmatized the VA loan a little bit, and they don't actually exist anymore. And a lot of them were just sort of misconceptions about the VA loan. Like, people thought that the appraisers were more difficult, that they were more strict on the appraisal requirements, or that the underwriting took longer, or that the seller had to pay the veteran's closing costs. So it's like there were all these roadblocks that went up. So, again, thinking that realtor who's getting 3 or 4 offers is kind of like maybe putting that VA offer at the bottom of the stack. Well, let's look at these other ones first and see, get to that other one. Fortunately, that has changed. And I would say drastically so in the last, probably really the last 10 years, but especially like the last 5 years, just because there has been so much education, not only groups like, Military Mortgage Boot Camp, but others that have gone out to not only educate loan officers, but also educate realtors about this awesome loan program for our veterans. And so now, people understand that when it comes to appraisals, for instance, it's the exact same appraisers who are doing a VA appraisal who are doing a conventional or an FHA appraisal. So it's not like there's some, bias or underqualified set that's doing VA appraisals. They understand that the VA loan is not a loan from the VA, but the VA essentially acts as an insurance company, right? They're insuring the lender that if the veteran defaults, that the lender will be made whole. And consequently, that's a great insurance policy that lenders don't really have on conventional or FHA. I mean, they do. There is mortgage insurance there, but when a lender goes to file a claim, there's so many more hoops to jump through to try to get a payout on the claim of that defaulted loan that is just really onerous. And VA is much better to deal with. So lenders understand that. So lenders want to make loans to veterans and VA because it's a better product in their portfolio of loans. And then of course there is the the PR aspect of it. I mean, who doesn't love the idea of helping veterans? So realtors and loan officers alike, like to boast about how they support our veterans. We all love to support our veterans, and so it's gone from having kind of a little bit of a negative connotation to a much more positive connotation that people kind of want to race to help veterans. So I feel like now, especially with the internet and so much more at your fingertips, everyone's a lot more informed. So I kind of rambled there, sorry, but
No, that's great. And I want to say there's so much information out there that needs to happen, right? And you have a great tone on it. And I think it's so important for us as veterans to be able to find somebody to trust. And I want to say, it's a lot of time. It's like, man, who do we trust? Who do we look up to? Who do we find? And it's something that was super important to me because, who has the time to give? And you have always had the time. You've always had a great explanation, and you didn't just feed into, the narrative that I was presenting to you. You were like, yeah, you could do that, but here's the problems with this, and this, and here's the outcomes of this, and here's the market value of that. And you have a very good tone on the market. Not only that, but the tools that you have now that you presented to me always gave, my housing market value and how it was going through the months. And, I think there's a lot of different things that are out there that can influence us to be able to trust. But at the same time, there's other organizations out there that are preying on veterans that are just like throwing some weird like scenarios out there, throwing it out there. If you're a veteran, just like an insurance company that I see all the time, they're like, hey, if you're spending over $30 a month for your car insurance, you're wrong. You need to call us. And you call them and they send you down some rabbit hole that's not even true. It's just a preying on a veteran. And that's something that we as veterans so much hate. And it's so, just a waste of time. You've never been a waste of my time. And I think that that's an important factor. And I think you've always given me such a valued amount of time, effort, support, and not only that, but just the lessons for my other veterans that I've sent you. They've all came out with, and not not all veterans are compatible with what you need to be able to give to, because some veterans are not ready to handle their own issues, because a lot of times we're dealing with PTSD and we can't really just we clash with personalities, and it's hard to navigate personality versus business. And so I think you do it well. And I think that's an important factor to the trust piece.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I think that for lack of a better term, there's a target on veterans as a group that gets marketed too heavily, and maybe some lenders maybe have the name veteran in their company name or whatever, and some of those, they're great, and some maybe not. Really though, what it comes down to is sort of the individual experience that you're going to have with the loan officer who's going to walk you through the programs and help you kind of understand the pluses and minuses. So you talk about people sort of preying upon veterans, and again, I don't think you can't just categorically just dismiss any one whole lender or business, because like I say, it really comes down to the individual experience. And for me personally, like, I love just educating both a veteran and the realtor, and taking the time. And like you said, Aaron, especially with a lot of people that you're working with who have PTSD, it's like they're more maybe acute needs that are being worked on rather than, buying a home. I mean, for a lot of people, yeah, that is a goal and that's a desire to happen. But when you're dealing with PTSD, there's a whole other slew of things that are happening that buying a home just isn't there. But that said, it may be a goal. And for me, like when I talk to these people who are considering it, like I don't care if it's something that's like 6 months down the road, a year down the road, or 2 years down the road. Kind of take an approach like, maybe that this is a process, right? And so just trying to provide education and feed and get people positioned, to be in a place where they can make this home purchase at some point in the future, or that's, it's 6 months, a year, or 18 months down the road. And, a lot of times that has to do with, getting, having the job that's, maybe for at least a year, or sometimes preferably 2 years, but not always, it varies. Or might be a matter of coaching through and working on credit, getting credit scores up to a certain level where they need to be, so that, we can come back and revisit it, a year later or whenever it is, and have them, ready to go. But that is kind of where my my heart is with helping veterans, is because it's just, I just want to see them, succeed the best they can. And, if they end up, going somewhere else, for, that's fine. I'm all about them getting the best, possible service and deal and everything. I'm here to provide answers as much as possible. And,
Yeah. I just, I want to say, Adam has, such a cool, on his social media pages, he's got these lessons that he goes through. If you ever get a chance, and I share them from time to time when I see him, he's got this whole thing. He's like, hey, here's what the market's doing today. And there's some cool things going on with this situation that you could take advantage of, blah, 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 blah. And you got this really cool thing. And, and you're out on the street or you're walking and you're telling this really good story. And so it's really well done. And so if you get a chance to check out some of that, if you can go into some of those things, and then, talk a little bit about refinancing and why, what is that looking like, and how that approach might be, what's going on with the market right now with all that. But talk a little bit about your cool, these things that you put together, man. It's always cool. And what inspires you to do those? Because, and are you doing them on a regular basis, or they just come to you and you're like, hey, I'm going to go out and do one today? I mean, what's going on?
Well, thanks. I appreciate you noticing that. And it's like, the answer is not doing it regularly enough. I mean, I go through these periods where, I'm really good and I'm, putting stuff out there consistently. And then other times maybe kind of have a, inspired moment. But, I don't just do VA loans. I also do, like reverse mortgages and conventional loans. And so, kind of cover the whole gamut of, residential lending. So these clips that you're talking about, that Aaron's talking about, can be, a variety of topics. And so sometimes, just kind of letting people know what's in the market, or maybe trying to help decipher, because a lot of the questions that people have, especially their first time home buyer, is, should I wait, or, should I wait and see if rates come down, or should I wait and see if the housing market crashes, and, all these kinds of questions. And so I just try to, put that information out there. So some of it, kind of randomly comes to me. Other times I have, a specific thing that I want to share, usually something I want to share. But I think, like anybody in their field of expertise, so much of the stuff just seems like second nature. It's like, oh yeah, of course, everybody knows that. But then I think like, no, everybody doesn't know that. And it's just like, seems, super basic, but it's, just kind of helpful. So I just try to, most of my social media, I just do on Instagram. I put stuff out there on Instagram, then a little bit on YouTube as well. But, I just trying to provide kind of helpful tips on that stuff. And as for the market, and you asked about refinancing, kind of where things are going, I am optimistic about the rates coming down further into 2026. And part of that we're going to have a new Fed chairman. Evidently, I heard that Trump has made his choice. It's come down to three people. He hasn't announced it yet, but the choice has been made. And you can be assured that whichever one of those three, that's someone who's fairly dovish as far as, wanting to see rate cuts happen sooner. Because that's one of the things that the Fed has been looking at over this last year. Really two things. One is the employment, and then two is the rate of inflation. So inflation has come down, a lot from where it was a couple of years ago, but it hasn't hit the Fed's, target that's somewhat arbitrary of a 2% inflation, and we're hovering closer to like 3%. So consequently, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell has been a little bit, lax to, cut the rates as much as, well, not just as much as President Trump, but really all of us would like to see. But then the other thing that's really important is the employment. And so employment numbers have not been that great. And of course, we had our 35-day government shutdown, which resulted in delayed statistics from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So we got the October jobs report kind of late, and those numbers were the headline number was a little bit better than expected, but inside it, once you kind of looked under the hood, it wasn't that impressive. And then the November numbers, normally we would get those this Friday, because the jobs report always comes out the first Friday of the month, which would be this Friday. We would get the November jobs report, but because of the shutdown, we won't have that. And so consequently, we've just been working off of this kind of anemic reports to look at like ADP, which is the payroll provider. What are they showing in terms of new job creations? And so I think, however, we did see that from that last report that the unemployment rate ticked up from 4.2 to 4.3. So I think there are some more things that would justify the Fed cutting the rates sooner. And so whoever this new Fed chairman is going to be, I think will be more inclined to do that. So, but it isn't just, what the Fed, the Fed's decision. There are other factors that come into play. So Bank of Japan, for instance, had talked about them hiking their rates. So whenever we have these, other foreign markets, whether it's in Germany or Japan, if they move their rates up or down, that has an impact on us too. But overall, I am optimistic about seeing the rates come down in 2026. And so a lot of people who have bought their home in the last year and a half, especially if you did it with a VA loan, will have an opportunity to do a VA IRRL, which is an interest rate refinance reduction loan. We love our acronyms in the military, right? So not that I've never in the military, but the IRRL is the greatest loan ever, because it's super easy. It's basically just like signing a new application without having to go through all the paperwork, providing pay stubs and bank statements and all that jazz. You don't even need an appraisal. So it's really simple. However, it does have a waiting period, which is basically 210 days. So it ends up being close to 7 months from the time of the first payment was due. So whenever the first payment was due on the previous mortgage, it has to be at least 210 days from that. So, and I have some clients who are, the rates are better than when they bought, but we just kind of have to wait that out. So for veterans who do have VA loans right now, who maybe bought within the last year or two, keep a close eye on that, because I think you could see an opportunity. People who have loans that got them back in 2020 or 2021 or 2022, no, you're not going to be seeing a lower rate than that anytime soon. But the last thing that I wanted to mention was, and it isn't something that so much me on the origination side it handles, but the HR 1815, which is the VA Home Affordability Act, I think it was called. And basically what that does is it allows for the a veteran to make a partial claim. So normally, if a veteran defaults on the loan, and that lender puts a claim in with the VA to get reimbursed, well, what this does as a partial claim is if veteran starts to get in trouble, they can do a partial claim and have the VA assist and bring the payments current, and essentially give the VA kind of like a silent second mortgage on that home, so that they don't have to make payments. And I don't think it's an interest bearing. It's not interest bearing, but basically allows them to stay current and not go into foreclosure. So that was the VA Home Loan Reform Act that came out just this year, and it's pretty new. So I think that, like anything, they're still kind of working out some of the details. But if anyone in the audience is having troubles, the first thing they should do is just talk to your current loan servicer about the possibility of getting a partial claim and restructuring to bring their payments current, and then give them some relief so they don't risk going into foreclosure.
So does that mean their payments stay the same, and then that secondary loan picks up at the end of that loan? Is that how that would work, or how does that kind of work? If you can kind of go through that, map it out a little bit more.
the way it would work is whatever the amount is that's been missed, or in arrears, it's 2 or 3 or 4 months worth of payments. The VA would essentially come in and whatever that amount is, bring it current, and pay the first trustee lender the amount owed. And then the VA essentially has a second mortgage, a lien position, and you don't need to make any payments on it. And it doesn't need to be paid off until you either sell the home, or you refinance it, or just pay the property off in full. But so it's, like I said, it's pretty new, and so the kind of the devil's in the details as far as who is eligible. But I kind of, it seems like something where if someone had just kind of gone through a sort of a tough spell, but are sort of back on their feet, but they kind of can't get caught up on the back payments that were missed, this is going to be a great tool for helping them out. So just in case people haven't heard of it, it's definitely something to be aware of. And like I say, something that you would check with your current loan servicer on to see if you can get some relief for that.
Well, that's outstanding. That's just, I remember you talked to me about it a little bit this year. It's great news, to know what's going on. And I think a lot of people, a lot of our listeners may not know that exists. And, it's always curious to know what's kind of going on with the refinancing packages, or, all these different things that you have knowledge of, especially. And I think you brought up to me one time, you're like, hey, even though interest rates go down, it doesn't always mean that the interest rates on homes are going to go down. They could go down real quick, but as soon as everybody rushes to go buy homes, the interest rates go up again, and you might end up with a higher interest rate. You kind of talked about the market value of homes. They kind of get the shaft because the market takes advantage of that situation. And so there's a lot of things that you got to pay attention to. And, any last words you want to tell, feel free to do so, Adam. And if people want to get a hold of you, let us know how to do that. You can definitely get a hold of them through me. As always, all my guests, you can hit me up and I'll get you in touch with them. And feel free to give out your information as you please. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you, Aaron. Yeah, so just kind of picking up where you left off, talking about when the rates go down, how do they actually go up? So, the market is really good about anticipating if the Fed is going to cut the rates or not. So, when the Fed cut the rates back in September of this year, we knew that rate cut was coming, and you can see the bond market improving well in advance of that. It's sort of like, just like driving a car. You don't wait till you're in the middle of the corner, the apex of the turn, start turning the steering wheel. You start doing it beforehand, right? So bond market does the exact same thing. And so it's tricky because, the media talks about, oh, the Fed's going to cut rates, Fed's going to cut rates. And as a layperson, just a regular consumer, thinking, oh, cool, well, I'm going to wait until the Fed cuts rates before I, lock in my interest rate for my mortgage. But because the bond market has already been improving in anticipation of that, it's not uncommon to see the Fed cut the rates, okay, the Fed funds rate, which is the overnight rate that the banks lend each other, but then have the mortgage rates actually go up. Because what happens when they cut the rates is that they cut the rates, and if they don't cut by as much as we hoped, then maybe that causes the bond market to react negatively. Or if the Fed chairman says, okay, yeah, we cut rates, but we're not sure we're going to cut them the next time, or whatever their sort of forward look is, that can kind of like throw a wet rag on the party. And so it's just one of those things of, kind of and trying to anticipate, sort of reading the tea leaves, if you will, of what's the best way to go about this. And then, as I did say, I think the rates will come down, and as they come down, it's just going to bring more buyers into the market, right? And that's just going to put more upward pressure on the home prices, which I think is the other thing that you were alluding to. But yeah, no, thanks, Aaron. I really appreciate being here with you. And of course, people can always reach me through you. But as far as my own social media, I'm just at Adam Heaney Home Loans. .com, and also on Instagram and YouTube at Adam Heaney Home Loans. And that's you can always DM me there. And look forward to talking to you. And like I say, even if it isn't something that you feel is like in your immediate horizon, but it's something you have questions about, I'd love to talk to you.
Well, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for being here. And it's great to reconnect and make things happen. It's amazing to bring people together, bring these sponsor supporters, volunteers together that need to come on here and actually give some help, support, whatever it might look like. If you need something and I have that resource, it's great. But I would say check out some of my other podcasts to see if some of that support network is out there. Listen to some of these stories. They may resonate with you. They may have some sort of impact or some sort of support for you that you may not know fully. I don't always know what these things always mean up front, and nor did I know what it meant when Brian Colburn first hit me up and said, "Hey, Chief, you need to have a podcast." And we started doing this way back when, and it was just not live like this, not a not a picture, not a video, and now it's now it's a library of different support things, and it's just another tool that's out there for you. And so if you need something, if you need some support, reach out there, make it happen. Be involved in your lives. Love those that you love. Be around good people. And Brian Colburn, thanks for all your support. I'm sorry for your loss of your beautiful wife, Lupe. And until next time, for all you out there, grab your loved ones, give them a hug, and stay strong. God bless. Strength and honor. Out.
The only way, and we need nothing more. The only way, together forever, that's for sure.